Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I am your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm here in the lobby of the Royale. I'm joined by Elizabeth Powell from Land to Talk. Elizabeth, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty fine. Yeah, thanks.
Good. Well, welcome back to Boston. What was I going to say? Life After Youth. Such a great record. Such a great name for a record, too.
Thanks.
So I have to ask, what has Life After Youth been like for you?
Oh, it's been great. It's let me see. That's a big question. Yeah, it's been quite nice. It seems to have spelled a lot of reunions and a lot of resilience. That seems to be what Life After Youth is about, is kind of maybe if youth is sort of carefreeness and let's say the salad days, maybe Life After Youth is kind of, I feel like I go through more quiet contemplation, and I'm a lot more grateful for the fact that I had a great youth and the fact that I'm aging out of it in a pretty spectacular way, I think, if this past summer and this record has been any sign of, what Life After Youth is.
Well, I would have to agree with you there. It's an awesome record, first record from Land to Talk in 7 years. What was the biggest change, either in the industry and the way that you approached music, when you came back after the brief hiatus?
I see more women and more like non-binary and trans and more people of color on the scene, and that like fills my heart, and that just makes everything seem even more like, maybe if I didn't notice it before, I didn't realize the lack of representation, or I did, but you kind of figured that was just the way it was, and there's something, it's astonishing to me, and it's so like, it seems like a weight has been lifted, and all these color, there's just so much more color and so much more dynamic and more diversity, and that's only a good thing. So yeah, I like seeing my sisters, and not just like, and my non-cisgendered sisters, representation. So yeah.
Well, nice. That's
awesome.
That's a damn good thing to notice.
Yes.
And then, so during this break, I read that you had been working in a bakery for a little while.
Yeah, Powell and I.
Really? So, did people recognize you there?
Yes, they did sometimes, and it was so awkward. I'd be like pulling their coffee and like handing it to them, and they'd sort of like the other bands would play, maybe like at a bar the night before in Aurelia, and then they would come to the cafe the next morning for their breakfast and their coffee. So there would be bands that I would have maybe even toured with, or I would have been in the same scene. So it was funny for them to do the double take and then kind of either quietly ask me, or a lot of the times wouldn't even be, and they'd be kind of sitting over there, and then like I could see them checking Instagram or checking. It happened kind of often enough that it became kind of a joke with the girls and the women in the cafe, who they'd be like, I think somebody's recognizing you right now, and then I'd almost feel either apologetic, kind of, oh, I felt proud to be there, and I was proud of their coffee and serve it to them, because everybody needs music and everybody needs some way to start their day. So yeah.
I agree. Music and coffee are what gets me through as well.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you enjoyed making there? Any sort of like specialty of the cafe?
I loved making the scones. The scones seemed to be what people would respond to most. So Nancy, my boss, she gave me creative control. So I'd get there at 5 in the morning, and then whatever, if there were peaches, almonds, or cinnamon, I could kind of like make whatever kind of concoction I wanted. So I think the blueberry scones were always the favorite, blueberry lemon, a little bit of lemon zest in there. And yeah, big warm basket, and watching all the people come in, delighted, yeah.
Well, nice. Did you notice a connection there, either like in terms of keeping the creativity going, of either, it's not thinking of chords, but like flavor combinations or things like that?
Yeah. And even aesthetically too. Like
Yeah.
I had so much fun just with the colors and the texture and decorating. Like if I was doing the muffins and stuff, just the way I would, it all kind of goes into it. And the fact that my boss and the founder and the owner of Powell and I's Cafe would, she's a huge music fan and a huge, supporter of the arts, and huge feminist and a huge, just like awesome all-around human. So she kept me creative. Like she kept reminding me kind of who I was every now and then. We'd have the radio on, and we'd be listening to CBC, which is our version of NPR. She'd always listen to the music shows, and every time she'd hear something, she'd be like, "Don't you miss it? Don't you miss it, Lizzie? Just get back there. I'm not going to let you work here anymore." She was kind of like, if by January you're still like doing this, I'm going to make sure, she kind of was always motivating me to get back to it. So that was important. That was an important part of.
And that everyone needs someone like that too, who's like sort of your biggest advocate and your biggest fan.
Yeah, totally.
And then, so I understand that part of the reason why you wanted to take a step back from music was just it was a lot of success very, very quickly, and that it was a little bit overwhelming, and that you wanted to make sure that you had a semblance of a personal life as well as a professional life. Yeah. So you've done so many tours this year. This record is blowing up. How are you going to make sure that you aren't finding yourself in the same predicament, that you're keeping the balance now?
I think as long as you set your parameters and you, in the name of self-respect and sustainability and self-care and in the name of keeping the band together and mental health and keeping everything kind of, as long as you kind of put it that way, and I think everybody is actually on the same tip now. I think there's been a sea change in the way the industry works, I find, in my circle. People are a lot more willing to accommodate in the name of your well-being, and people I don't think are, and I also feel like the more we voice it and the more artists and musicians talk about what a grind the tour is, and we're not just all these drunk rock stars on a tour bus kind of thing, I think that there's more of an appreciation for just how much you can give on the road, and the fact that every night we're kind of giving of ourselves. That anyway, I feel like this time around it was just a lot easier to, and maybe by virtue of the fact that we do have a very supportive following, and I think that I am definitely in a position of privilege where I can kind of call a little bit more of the shots or even request parameters. But yeah, that has helped, and I don't know. So far, so good.
Good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's one of those things I don't think people realize how grinding, touring is. And even as a fan, I've noticed smaller tours, but more of them. Just like, you'll do the Northeast, and then that will be it. And then a couple weeks, then the South, or something like that. Yeah. And it must make a difference.
It totally does. It just keeps your relationship with the music itself healthier, too.
I think that this album, again, Life After Youth, is a testament to the power of music and how music can help you overcome something.
Yes.
Exactly. And so for you, what is the power of music, if you could sum that up?
Ooh, what is the power of music? We all grow up with it, and so I think its power lies in that it's been there since, in our formative years. Music is always, assuming that most of us hopefully have been held as babies and maybe sung to. The lullaby seems to be a common thread cross-culturally, like a lullaby and singing a baby to sleep seems to be, a global way. So I think that when we're playing music as adults, and you're still tapping, and when we're listening to music, you're still tapping into this, primordial, just this, I don't know, this lullaby, you're kind of, it's a lulling. I find that's, for me, that's how it helps me. It lulls me and it centers me. I guess I can only speak personally, but I think the power of music has on me. So yeah, everything else falls by the wayside, and it helps create a space where it creates a safe space. Yeah.
Well, nice. And then
I hope that made sense.
Oh, it totally
It's
did.
so meaningful that I hope that's such a big question.
No, of course. And then another big buzzword around this record specifically was clarity, and clarity around songwriting, clarity in your vocal style. So why was clarity something important for you to focus on with this record? What was it about these set of songs that really it needed to be more clear?
I think I wanted to make sure, and maybe, now that I'm hearing a lot of feedback about the album, now that I'm out there touring again, and I'm speaking to people after the show, and they're telling me what certain songs have meant to them from this album and from before, previous albums. I feel like I thought I wasn't being clear enough in my kind of more cryptic songwriting from earlier, the way I tend to write is abstract, non-linear, not really, more just stream of consciousness. I kind of thought as a songwriter I should take a stab at being a little bit more clear and concise. But it turns out I feel like whatever I'm saying with the emotion and the intent when I'm saying it, people get it anyway. Even somebody last night at the show just said, you put into poetry what I'm trying to feel, and you put into words what I can't say. And for me, I feel like the most inarticulate person in the world, and the fact that somebody actually feels like I can articulate for them what they can't say, and I kind of now feel like, oh, maybe the next record I'll just be back to, I won't put those memories. I'm still so happy that I did, let's say like a song like This Time. That to me I needed to say, I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste this time. I think I needed to say very declaratively, and I wanted to make sure that song for sure is very clear. But yeah, I think that now I kind of realize it's all good, like whichever way I want to express myself, it will be accepted in this platform of Land of Talk, because the people who listen to Land of Talk are just, they get it, they interpret it however they want, and it seems to be soothing, so then that means it's working. You know what I mean?
No, of course, and there's nothing more empowering than writing something that you could be proud of. And also as a listener too, sort of looking at it and listening to a song and going, that person is articulating what I am trying to feel. There's something really special about that.
Yeah.
And this album does a great job with it. And you mentioned This Time as one of those songs that with the clarity. For me, World Made was one that I just sort of heard the clarity right from the beginning.
Okay, yeah, totally. Okay, yeah.
Now, was there any particular challenge that you encountered when you were making this record? Anything that you were sort of like, wow, that was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be, your cobwebs or anything like that?
No, if anything, the challenge, worried about, maybe I was putting pressure on myself to make sure that that the people who had been there for us before I took a hiatus would still want to hear what I had to say 7 years later. Like I guess I was a little bit worried about maybe like, would I still connect like with the same people? I was just hoping that the relationship would be still there, and there was. So yeah, if anything, that was kind of maybe in the back of my mind, like, oh, I hope they still like it. Like I hope it still connects or it still translates,
Well, and it certainly does. It certainly does. You do so many of these interviews, which I am so appreciative of it as a journalist. And again, when you do so many, there are bound to be some that are bad, and then there are some that are offensive.
Yes.
But what do you wish you had the chance that you were asked about more often in these conversations?
I love talking about my guitar playing. I love getting into the fact that I'm not really a gearhead or a gear nerd.
And then so switching gears a little bit, if you could sit next to anyone on a plane, who would you want to sit next to?
I think I just sat next to her the other day. It was a woman in a cafe, and I was just biding my time before the rehearsal was to begin, and we just had the greatest conversation. Her name was Marnie. She was in her 60s, and she just regaled me with tales of her travels and her life, and so I think I'd like to sit beside any stranger with an open heart. That's like, I love that. I just love any kind of worldly person with kind eyes and a neat perspective and an open heart. That's kind of who I like to sit beside.
Well, perfect. And then it was sort of with the holidays approaching and you having the background in the bakery, just something I thought to ask, what is something that people should be making around this time of year? Do you have any thing that you like to break out?
No, you know what's funny? I feel like I'm totally misrepresenting myself though as a baker, because the only reason it was a means to an end, and I was a baker because Nancy believed in me, and I always came into the cafe anyway, and she saw me while looking on my phone, kind of like anxious. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking for a job, Nancy." She's like, "Well, work here," so she taught me everything, and it wasn't because I had a passion for baking at all, and I don't even think I've turned my oven on since I moved into my house, so that's what's funny is I would say like, "Oh, just go get a bag of chips," or like, drink some eggnog, but let's see, honestly, let's see, what should people be baking? I love those just like those chocolate rum balls rolled in coconut or something.
Okay.
What are those? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
Well, there you go. And
I guess you don't bake those.
Well, it's something that sounds delicious.
Yeah,
and
you eat them.
You eat them, and maybe you should
They
eat
go in
one.
your mouth.
Yeah, there you go. Eat one while listening to Life After Youth.
Yeah,
And then
totally.
This will be my last question for you. Who are you listening to? Who are some of your favorite artists right now?
I was in the hotel room. I was just listening to Cousins, a song called
okay.
Thunder. I'm obsessed with that song. Somebody played it the other night. Oh, my friend Emily was playing it the other night. It stopped me dead in my tracks. I said, "What is this?" So it's a band called Cousins. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. Maybe they're from 2000. I think the record is from 2012. But anyway, it's a great song. And the whole album I've just started listening to. It's awesome. Obviously, The War on Drugs, A Deeper Understanding. That is coursing through my veins every day. I mean, also because I run to it, like long distance. So I'll run with that. During the day, I'll listen to it, and then we toured with them, so I got to hear it live every night. Obviously, the new Kurt Vile, Courtney Barnett
Yes.
record. I've just heard snippets of it, but obviously I'm going to sink my teeth into it. What else have I been listening to obsessively? Yeah, I think I've just been a little obsessed with War on Drugs, pretty much.
Nice, nice. Well, if you're not listening to Life After Youth, you will be obsessed with it too. My guest has been Elizabeth from Land of Talk. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.